Well, outrage in Queensland tonight after a local woman rocked up to her bank to withdraw cash, only to be told they didn't have any. Taryn Compton wanted to grab some notes to pay a tradie, but when she got to the ANZ ATM, she realised she'd forgotten her EFTPOS card. When she asked the teller for the money instead, she was told the bank doesn't carry cash.
And Taryn Compton's here to tell us all about her terrible banking experience. Taryn, what did you think when you walked into a bank only to be told they don't have cash?
I thought it was absolutely crazy. I thought she must have misheard what I wanted, if I'm honest. How can you go to a bank and not be able to get your own money out?
Taryn, that's what I'm confused about. So what's in the bank if there's no cash? Isn't there, if you open up the safe, what's in there? How did they explain it to you?
They just said, I'm so sorry, we can't help you. There's nothing we can do. We don't have cash here.
So did you think maybe that was a temporary situation? That maybe they were going to get some cash tomorrow?
No, she actually said, we don't carry cash anymore.
Well, outraging.
Yeah, so this is true. There's a push that a lot of banks are having, and they just don't deal with cash. If you want cash, you gotta go to an ATM, and in some places you'll notice that more and more ATMs are removed, or when you do find one, it's out of order because it ran out of cash. So it's true, there is a push in the world in order to remove cash. And as you can see, this is one of the reasons why they do it. It's the removal of privacy. I mean, in a cashless society, you would live in a fiscal dictatorship. Everything you purchased would be on a piece of paper, so they would absolutely be able to see where you're spending your holidays, what exactly you're purchasing. They could have various systems in order to punish you if you spend too many carbon credits, if you purchase too much meat, so much, and so forth. The communists used to do that. In the Soviet Union, they would have ration cards. And if you overpaid your ration card, then even if you had actual money, you weren't allowed to purchase meat, you weren't allowed to purchase bread. In China, they can do the same. They can limit what you are doing. So there was this huge banking protest that took place in China. And the Chinese government made it so that some of the leaders, as well as people who expressed on social media that they want to partake into the process, and the government made it that some of the leaders and organizers of the protest, as well as proeminent people that voiced their desire to attend on social media, found out that their health pass was turned from green to red. So now even if they had money when they tried to use public transportation in order to be able to attend, they weren't allowed. So this is an amazing way that the government can use in order to crack down on dissent. We also saw it in Canada with the trucker protest, where they decided to shut down the banking accounts of the protesters, right? So this is a politician's wet dream in order to be able to crack down dissent. And this is why you don't see a lot of politicians being outraged that the banks are doing this, or you don't see a lot of politicians trying to pass legislation in order to prevent the banks from doing this. Frozen funds, we saw this in Britain with Nigel Farage, where the banks decided to freeze his accounts. The banks said that they don't want to do business with him because of violation of terms of service. All the banks. And I'm pretty sure if he wasn't Nigel Farage, he wouldn't have been able to find out why the banks are saying this, and he wouldn't be able to gather enough support for the banks to reconsider their decision. But you can understand just how terrifying it is in a cashless society where you actually do not have access to physical money if the banks, who are private companies, say, well, yeah, we just don't want to do business with you. So theoretically, their private companies can do whatever they want, but where are you going to get money in order to be able to live in a society? And again, the establishment loves this because people may have grievances in a society. People may have certain issues that they want to express, but if their representatives, if people like Nigel Farage are unable to use money, then who's going to represent the interests of the people? How can you even pay money to your representative so that he can campaign if you live in a cashless society and the banks don't want to do business with him? So there are certain good news and bad news about this. I know many people will say, well, crypto this, crypto that. And my question is, how are you going to actually use crypto in such a system? Like, you're probably an employee, right? You want to get a job for Amazon, or you're going to get a wage slave somewhere. They're not going to pay you in crypto. Like, they're going to pay you in cash, and you're going to be required to have a bank account for them to wire you the money. And if you say no, then they don't employ you. So for the average person, for the biggest percentage of the population, which is what they're interested in, like they're not interested in making sure that 100%, like every single person in the society uses CBDC. No, they're going to be interested that the overwhelming amount of people, like if it's 60% or 70%, they would still call it a success. And these individuals, they're going to get a normal job, like an average work at a company or at an employer, and the employer is going to pay them through the banking system. Not through Bitcoin or anything else. Like, once you get your money, sure, but if the bank doesn't allow you to withdraw your money or they don't allow you to make the transfer, what are you going to do then? So that is the bad news. I don't think that crypto is the solution to this problem, but there is good news as well. Like, there are things that are working in our favor, and by ours, I mean the people who do not want cashless society. The first one is that the politicians love taking bribes as well, especially the politicians from the European Union. I mean, it's considered to be one of the most corrupt parliaments in Europe. They want to take bribes. They don't want their money to be tracked. They don't want their finances to be tracked. They don't want every single transactions that they do to be tracked. So they will not want this system to actually exist in the long term. Of course, they can't actually voice, it's like, hey, we want to take bribes too. But they will find like various reasons in order to hamper or to delay the implementation of the system. We saw it in Sweden. For instance, all of a sudden the politicians came out and Sweden, which was the closest nation in the world, in my opinion, to becoming a cashless society, all of a sudden has politicians that are saying, well, we do have like a lot of elderly people, the older generation, they are unaware on how to use technology, or they live in remote areas and it's very unfair to them. We can't have the system actually implemented. So they started rolling back. And I assume like this is what's going to happen in a lot of nations that have this cashless society extravaganza. They're going to, over time, start coming up with various reasons. Well, actually, it infringes on the marginalized, blah, blah, blah. My cynical Eastern European brain is more on the fact that they don't really care about the marginalized. But again, like politicians like taking bribes. There is a reason why the saying that every politician is a corrupt person exists in Eastern Europe. So that is one thing. The other thing is criminals. And by criminals, I don't mean like the average thug or street rat that is committing crime, but no, like organized crime. And, these people do have connections with mayors and city halls and politicians, because otherwise they wouldn't exist. Like, you cannot have organized crime without the authorities knowing about it and looking the other way. And those are individuals that actually do have nothing to lose. So if you're going to tell them that, well, actually you can't do business at all anymore, and they're already desperate, might not end up really good. But this is not the only two things that work in our favor. Another one is the system was actually attempted to be implemented in the Soviet Union. Again, they didn't have the technology to do this, but they did try to do it with rations. So what ended up happening is the same thing that happens in prison. People started bartering. Now in prisons, they do not use cash as much as they use cigarettes. But, in the Soviet Union, people started using the Kent cigarette pack. Like, it was a Western brand, and it pretty much like had its worth weight in gold. The coffee pack, like if you had the Jacobs coffee, like that was, again, used for bartering. Like, no one would actually open the pack of coffee. They would just take it in exchange for a favor, and then they would give it to someone else, also in exchange for a favor. So you had like this alternative currency, which wasn't based on crypto, but it was based on the Kent cigarettes pack, the Jacobs coffee pack, and the whiskey bottle. So all of these three things ended up being as an alternative form of currency that people would use in order to get favors or to actually purchase goods. And it's incentivizing that. And then you also have like certain nations that literally do not use technology. Like in Romania, for instance, there's two Romanias. There's the Romania of the cities, right? The urban area where most people do use credit cards. But then you have like places that are isolated rural villages where people live like the Amish, more or less. They don't use credit cards. So like if you force them to use it, they will simply not. And these people have their own land, their own farms. And again, the government going all the way up in the mountains in order to enforce legislation that's kind of pseudo-legal. Because again, like the government isn't saying that you shouldn't use cash. It's just like the banks are not printing money. And yeah, I mean, those people are going to just use something else, you know. They're going to use packs of cigarettes, or they're going to use various other forms. And at the end of the day, the government is going to realize that they're getting less taxes because people will literally not have the money to pay taxes. So yeah, it's not really good. I do not think that this is going to be sustainable in the long run. I do believe that there are people who legitimately want to push this, and there are individuals that are very excited about this. However, the reality on the ground is much different. And the only bad thing is that in some places of the world, I do think in the United Kingdom and Australia, maybe a couple of others, there are going to be a couple of years, if not decades, where people are going to be subjected to this authoritarian shit. And they're going to have to deal the same way that my parents dealt with in the Soviet Union with this similar level of economy. It's not pleasant, it's not nice, but it's not the end of the world either. Again, unfortunate, very disturbing that you have to put up with this, but I don't think it's sustainable. I do not think that this is going to remain. Still, it is important to fight against it. Yes, like this is not desirable. You as an individual do not benefit in any way, shape, or form from this. Although it is unfortunate that many people are going to find this convenient, because the way that it's being sold is that imagine that you're getting a fine for a speed ticket, like a speeding violation, and all of a sudden your money is just deduced from your credit card without you having to do anything. Or your taxes just automatically get taken away from your credit card without you needing an accountant or anything. Like the system is automatic. It actually knows how much money you've made. And right, so like that's how it's going to be sold to the youth, and many people are probably going to bite on it. But the disadvantages are also numerous, and it's going to be difficult to deal with them. But again, probably there's going to be a little bit of frenzy over this. You're going to see the young generation supporting this, and oh, if you don't support this, you're a criminal, blah, 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 blah. But after a couple of years, people will realize, oh shit, I was wrong. And it's going to be similar to the pandemic. You know, like the madness from the pandemic, we're thinking about it now as if it was a fairy tale story that happened a long time ago. But it did happen, and for a couple of years, people did have to put up with all sorts of authoritarian measures. Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.